All right, finna go to get it started. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Champ podcast. For today's episode 200 and what is it, 216, 217, something like that. We're going to be discussing the most difficult battle that men face in today's generation. If you do not know who I am, my name is Champ, and I help men build their foundation of masculinity. A few things I want to say before I go to get it started for today's episode. Please make sure you go ahead and follow me on Twitch, TikTok, Rumble, and on Spotify at Life of a Champ Podcast on every single platform. As well as make sure you go ahead and follow me on X at Life of a Champ Podcast or at Life of a Champ with a dot, I'm pretty sure, or an underscore, something like that. Other than that, a few things I want to say before I go to get started. If you're not following me on X, follow me on X, follow me on YouTube, subscribe to me on YouTube for sure. And this should be an interesting episode. I'm going to mention a few things before I get into the topic, but if this is something that you're truly struggling with, I really, really would help. I really, really want to help you out. You need to reach out to people to try to hold you accountable to some of these things. And yeah, that's kind of how I really want to start this. So to start, the most difficult battle that men face in this generation. So I want to start it with this. You must understand, you must have a few foundational understandings to truly understand what this means and the significance that this has in today's society. And I keep stressing in today's society because I see this affecting my generation more than any other generation that has came, and I will foresee this affecting the future generations much more than our grandparents, much more than my parents, much more than my grandparents ever had to deal with this because they didn't necessarily have this issue. They never had this obstacle in their environment, right? So to start it, I want to keep it straight with you. Your mind is being fucked, right? And what I mean by that is this. Your mind is being fucked because of the social programming that does exist in today's society. There's many different things, and I could make an entire podcast of how your mind's fucked. But I'm gonna say the social programming in this one instance has really been able to shape not only the internet but the way in which we see dating, the way we see attraction, as this is a part of the dating and attraction series. This is episode number 6 or 7. Like I can't remember. I haven't done podcasts in a minute, but this is going to be a part of the dating and attraction series. If you haven't caught up with the first 5 episodes, 5 or 6 episodes that I've done, feel free to tap in with those for sure. I talked about many different things from masculine frame to understanding women. I've also talked about man, it's been a minute. I should have revised with these. But I've talked about a lot of different things. But in today's specific episode, when I say social programming, I'm referring to porn. I'm referring to masturbation. I'm referring to all of these things that, and I'll just say promiscuous photos. I'll say all of this, OnlyFans, all these things that contribute to the social programming that does exist today. Where let's just say a photo of a woman, a naked photo of a woman, just another naked photo of a woman instead of, like let's just say like 20 or 30 years ago, that was like, oh my gosh, she's naked, right? Now it's like, oh, okay, like that's just like one of like the next 100 I'm going to see in the next like 2 or 3 days, with the way in which society goes. I'm not saying this is my own personal perception because for reasons in which I will discuss later, but yes, the obstacle and the most difficult battle that men will face is overriding the social programming that does exist that is set up for you to fail, right? So porn has been accessible, if you're watching this and you're my generation, all of your life. And we've been accessing it from ages that we are embarrassed to go ahead and admit. This has been within our reach for literally as soon as we got a phone. And that definitely can do a lot of different things, and it has done and will affect your dating life and the way in which you see women and the way in which you interact with the world in general. Quite frankly, it's made our generation probably one of the most awkward generations when it comes to dating, and it is going to ripple out into many different generations that are ahead of us, and obviously the social media algorithms, they understand how provocative images and videos, how they pretty much do better than most videos. So therefore, they're going to push it out to you because it's going to be favorable to them because they actually get an incentive for your attention. So of course they're going to keep spreading these images, spreading these videos that are just going to be very very super provocative and alluring. And obviously that's going to influence if you're on social media, which pretty much most if you're watching this, you're on social media. Let's keep it a bean. It's very rare for a person to be watching this and like, yeah, I got no social media, because you could even consider YouTube a social media, but I would say it's an altered version of social media, but it is still social media. But that is going to influence a lot of the, what would I say? It's going to influence a lot of the internet, right? And that's going to trickle out to dating apps and things like that, right? Obviously, dating apps are the new normal. With porn being such a thing, everything sexual should not be on a screen. I'm gonna keep it a being with you, right? And if you don't understand that, and if you don't believe in that, and if you don't think that's the way that it should be, quite frankly, you need to rethink the way in which you've been living life. Sex in general has been an in-person thing. Now we have delegated some of that role, or some of that natural biological necessity, to something that is our little phone. That is this right here. Like come on now. Our relationship with sex should not deal with the phone. It just that's not how it's meant to be. But yet you see people investing their time, attention, and energy, and fucking and their money, just to see some bitch shaking booty. Like let's keep it. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And like I had mentioned, it's gonna trickle out to the dating apps, right? So now everything becomes superficial because of the social programming that I mentioned earlier, right? So if you haven't got to realize, there's going to be a trend within this video, within this podcast, right? It is the most difficult battle that men will need to go ahead and face in this generation, right? So most men, they just lie down. They're not going to combat what is set up for you to lose. So therefore, if you can't beat them, join them. And for the most part, people believe they can't beat them, so they join them. So they watch porn. So they're a victim of dating apps. So they're going to go ahead and do all these things, and then they become socially awkward. And like I mentioned, it's going to have a ripple effect of many different problems. And one of those, which I found very very interesting, and you could find a study for this, right? Most women want you to approach them, right? So with we having an awkward relationship with sex and our phone, the in-person interaction that should be taking place is going to involve a lot more anxieties, because quite frankly, instead of projecting this sexual energy and sexual force outward into the world as you should, you're going to put it into your phone. Therefore, you already have a connected and built relationship with your phone and a sexual interaction. Now it's going to be awkward to go ahead and divert that same energy into somewhere else where it's actually supposed to be. So what that's going to look like is when you approach a woman, right? Many men, especially my generation, they're going to deal with anxiety and things like that when it comes to going ahead and approaching. Of course, I was a victim of this as well. When I was dating, I definitely had to go up and go talk to women, because that's an absolute essential, right? I personally don't recommend dating apps for the reason that I mentioned earlier, with it being one of the most um, superficial, weird, and awkward interactions with sex in general. So, um, yeah, I just think that women want you to approach, and men are too afraid to approach, right? And that all goes back down to that social programming, which your mind being fucked, right? Your mind's fucked because it's in a position where you are too afraid to do some of the most basic fundamental human interactions, when that's not exactly how it ever was in previous times. So men are fighting lust, and they're fighting a social inclination with indulgence in your destruction. It's very easy to be fake online, of course. That is indeed true, Jaden. But for the reasons in which I mentioned, the game is pretty much rigged against you. So you must take back control. So how are you going to take back control is the question that you must be asking, right? If you're watching this, you're probably struggling with this. Here's the thing: if you are watching this and you're no longer, it is no longer a top of mind struggle for you, please leave it in the comments. I would love to hear your your response to this for sure. Another thing I want to mention that I found interesting, I've heard somebody say this before. As a kid, and this is what I was mentioning earlier with, porn pretty much being accessible as soon as we got a phone, right? As a kid, you can see 10 times the amount of naked women that a king in the past ever saw in his whole life in about less than an hour or even 30 minutes. The most beautiful women that have ever existed, you could see them in 30 minutes, more naked women that look fantastic than any king in history. And now your brain is not ready for that type of stimulus. Your brain's not ready for that type of um it's not ready for that type of circuitry that's going to completely destroy your dopamine. That's exactly what it does, and that's exactly what a lot of people have been realizing, that that's exactly what it does. It is going to it's going to literally destroy your dopamine, right? So I do believe it is something that you must be conscious of at first, and this is one thing um, that I think is the biggest issue for most people, is they don't necessarily recognize it as a problem. So for the reason in which I've already mentioned, I do, and I will stress that this is a problem that must be fixed. You must take the time to fix it yourself. And like I said, so many men are just going to lie down and be a victim of this specific problem. But it is going to be your duty to go ahead and say, this is a problem. I would like life to be different. The game is set up against me. It is my time to go ahead and take action. And you're not going to be able to solve the problem overnight, right? For me personally, I didn't solve it overnight. It's still an ongoing battle, right? And this is something that you're going to have to limit. This is something that you're going to have to tone down, right? Regardless of what it is, whether it's consumption of porn, whether it's masturbation, whether it's seeing a bunch of models on your phone, right? You're going to need to tone this down. And I'm not saying tomorrow you're going to wake up a new person. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you first need to recognize that it's a problem, and you recognize that you need to be able to be in control of your life and make sure it's less of a problem than what it could be, right? There's men, man, if you've heard some of these men, I've heard conversations with men talking about all types of stuff, and I'm like, man, you guys are you're not in a good position. You're not in a good position. And most of these men, they don't really have a plan. They don't think about it being anything worse than what it truly is, right? So you must understand that you must want something greater than what is. And that's the issue for most people, is they settle. Okay, let's just say, for example, right, if you're watching this and you're a younger man, it's gonna be a little bit of a struggle for you to get your way in the dating marketplace, right? When it comes to dating and attraction, it's definitely gonna be difficult. It's not something that's particularly easy, right? Part of it's because it's not set up for it to be easy, right? Obviously, you're not the most attractive that you could be, so therefore, it's already going to be a more of a difficult challenge. But a lot of these men, they say, you know what, that is too much of a challenge. I can get my biological needs met still without it being a challenge, so therefore that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. And that's what so many men go ahead and do. But you must understand that your character should truly mean something. You should have morals and values that override this monkey behavior. And that's exactly what it is. I know it sounds funny, but that's exactly what it is. You must understand, have some character. You're doing one of the most degenerate, low level, low status behaviors and habits that you could ever have in this life, right? Instead of interacting with the woman, you're deciding to interact with your hand instead. Instead of having some balls and going to go ahead and talk to a woman, you would much rather talk and interact with your phone, as it's going to give you the thrill of your life, instead of going out and getting it yourself, going out and getting it with another person. I'm not saying sex is the most paramount thing of all time. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is most men's relationships with sex isn't even sex. That's the craziest part. They say 1 in 3 men are sexless, ages 18 to like 24. So If you're watching this and you're one of these men, you must understand that that is not okay. You should not settle with that because you don't want that truly. If you're honest with yourself, you don't want that truly. Now, your actions might suggest something else. And that is something that you must take with some seriousness. Most men will say, "Oh, I want women, I want this and that." And then you look at their actions and they're not even approaching women. They haven't talked to a woman in months. They really don't want it as bad as they say they do want it. And that is something that you must understand thoroughly is the issue in itself. If you want something, go out and get it. Go out and earn it. And like I said, I'm not saying this is particularly easy. I said dating is not easy from the very, very beginning. It's not easy at all. But that's what makes it worthwhile. That's what makes it fun. That's what makes it one of the greatest thrills that the human experience can offer. And to speak a little bit on my personal journey, I've been on this conscious journey to forbid myself from using porn for about 6 years. Right? It's been an on and off battle. It's been an ongoing thing, and like I had mentioned, it's not easy by any means. But it's something that is definitely worthwhile when it comes to when it comes to just trying to, I'm just gonna say, level up your character. Level up your character in this game of life. It's literally what I believe is a must. It'll hold you back in this life. It'll hold you back from hitting the next level in anything, in any and every category of life. If you decided to remove this one thing, I guarantee you're going to level up other areas of life just with removing that one thing. And like I'd mentioned, it's not going to be something that you'll be like, okay, I'm done from here on today. I'm done, and I'll never touch it again, and I'll never even think about it again. That's not how this works, right? I would say lust, this obviously this sexual drive, and if you're watching this, hopefully you have high testosterone, so hopefully you have a natural drive to actually want what you should be wanting, right? But lust is never defeated just once. The beast of lust is never defeated just once. It must be constantly defeated into submission over time. And just because you've done it, like for example, I seen this trend years ago, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, when I was like 18 or 19, or 17, 18 or 19. I seen this trend of men. It was this movement it's not as popular now. Of course, there's still men that talk about it because they really come from that generation of men that used to talk about it. But there's this movement called NoFap. Basically, don't beat your meat. Pretty much, that's pretty much what it is. And when they when they were talking about it, they make it a weird obsession. It's like one of the most weirdest obsessions I've ever seen online. I understand that you want to go ahead and stop your porn usage and things like that, but they were counting days. They're like, "Oh, I just hit day 90 of no fap. I just got secret powers from that." Like you're not that nice, bro. And then they make it a part of their identity. And I do believe that you must make some of it your part of your identity, but you don't need to make it something where you're counting, because you're putting too much energy, you're putting too much emphasis on something that shouldn't have that much energy and shouldn't have that much emphasis and shouldn't have that much bandwidth of your thoughts to be thinking about something like that. When in reality, you should be diverting that energy somewhere else. I'm thinking about Think about women. Think about your passions. Think about your purpose. Think about something that's more meaningful than just the most basic desire that is sexual desire. And like I said, I'm not saying this is particularly easy. It's not. It's by no means easy. And obviously, here's the thing: if you were able to manage to resist porn, if you're able to resist this social programming that I mentioned, right? If you're able to resist masturbation, if you're able to resist all of these provocative images and videos online, if you're able to go ahead and do that, obviously you're still going to have that need that needs to be met. And now it forces you to go out and to get it in the world, to go out and take it from the world. So that is exactly what you must do. You must stop these things that are truly holding you back from thriving in the world. That's exactly what it's doing. And I've said it and I'll say it again. It's holding so much men back because they are just okay. Here's the thing. The problem with most men, and why it is even a bigger problem, an even bigger battle, is because men nowadays, they have no drive to get exactly what they want. They get a version of what they want and they settle with that because it's too hard. So they settle, okay. For example, right? I'm gonna speak from the point of view of those type of people, right? Okay, I can't get sex, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the next best thing, which is still getting my physical needs met. And I'm gonna tell myself that you know what, getting with women is overrated, right? That's exactly what they tell themselves. That's exactly what they convince themselves. That's exactly how they act out in the world, is by saying, you know what, whatever way I'm doing is good enough for me. And if here's the thing, if you believe that you're pathetic, first of all, if you believe that you're pathetic, if you are acting out a way in which would suggest that you actually do believe that, you're also pathetic. Because here's the thing, you might believe that you want something, which is obviously, sex, right? You might believe that you actually want that, but you don't want it bad enough to go out and get it in the world. So you don't want it as bad. Just admit it to yourself. Just say, "Oh, I don't want it as bad as I say I do." But here's the thing. That is something that you should have a drive to go ahead and change. Because obviously, that's a problem. I shouldn't even have to describe this to you. Obviously, that's a fucking problem. If you're okay with being sexless in this life, here's the thing. You have one life as a human being. If you're okay with being sexless, you are a broken human being. You are missing out on one of the most fundamental aspects of the human being, which is having sex. That's what it is. Obviously, it's more than that. It's having children and things like that. But you're missing out on one of the most fundamental things that exist in this human experience. You're wasting some of your best years because you're just a lame and you can't go out in the world and go get it yourself. So I want to relate this back to dating and attraction. Obviously, I've kind of made the correlation, how this is going to affect your dating, how this is going to affect your ability to go ahead and attract people, and how this is going to compromise so many men, as it does, and as it will continue to do, unless you change it yourself. You must understand that there's so much of this dating world that isn't even real, and that truly doesn't even exist within reality. And it's just literally just as simple as that, right? It's just as simple as that. You must take that and fully internalize what that truly means, right? It doesn't There's so much that exists, there's so much in the dating world that doesn't exist in real life, right? So scrap away the dating apps. Here's the thing. If you could thrive on dating apps, that's one thing, right? I would say there's a few men. The First of all, the odds are stacked against you in dating apps in general, right? If you're even an average man, good luck. You're fucking cooked in dating apps for the most part. But it's not okay. It's not okay to not approach women. It's not okay um it's not okay to stay in the position of comfort, especially if it's something that you want or that you say that you want, right? It is not okay to give yourself the illusionary comfort that it is okay to go without one of the most essential things and one of the most essential needs that is of the human being. I'm gonna get into one more thing before I go and end it off. Yeah, this just blows my mind. I've thought about this. I've thought about this for years now. I've had my own journey, and I'll talk about that for sure. So, oh yeah, I'll just get into that right now, man. So my battle with dating, my battle with lust, right? My battle with porn, my battle with masturbation, my battle with all these things, right? I was just like everyone else, a victim of the social programming that obviously is in none of our favor, right? I believed a few fallacies that I acted out. Obviously, one of them was thinking that sleeping with a bunch of women is going to be favorable, right? So I was able to overcome some of these challenges. Let's just say challenges with the social programming that I mentioned, right? And as you will realize, like I had mentioned earlier, I actually I didn't finish this point, but if you're able to overcome all these things, right, the social programming, if you're able to override it and you still can't get sex, you're gonna deal with the beast of lust on steroids, right? That's what I will say. So that was my own personal um what will I say journey, right? So I was able to defeat this, and like I had mentioned, it was for periods of time, right? You defeat it. I defeated a version of this beast of lust, right? I defeated it, and now I realized, okay, so now that I've defeated that, I'm not getting my physical needs met from something that was obviously that's monkey behavior, literally monkey behavior, right? So I must go out and get it in the world. So therefore, I realized I was like, okay, well, that's the only way I'm going to get my physical needs met. They got to get met, and I got to go out and get it in the world, right? So I believe this fallacy that is purported by this social programming that I told you about, right? That thinking that sleeping with women was something of value when it's not. It's something that you need to go ahead and experience it before you can truly understand what that means. Because it's easy to say, "Oh, I'm a man of character and I have values and things like that," and then be like, you know what, I don't need to sleep with women. Oh, because you. But here's the thing: usually that person that's going to be that way either either has done it, which I would say if you've done it, then you can actually speak from that experience. But here's the thing: if you haven't done it, your actions will value that, and that's just what it is because you obviously can't get it. And to say that it's not a value when you're one step below that is something that you must fix within your own self. Now, I'm not saying I'm saying from a well-rounded perspective, sleeping with a bunch of women, even having the accessibility and the capability to sleep with a lot of women is overrated, right? And a lot of men will probably disagree with me because, quite frankly, they either can't get it or they overvalue it, and that's just what it is. So I believe one of those fallacies that sleeping with women was a value. And I believed, obviously, through my actions, that porn, masturbation, all these things was acceptable and natural, right? That's what they'll try to tell you. Oh, it's a natural thing, and it's okay for you to go ahead and do it. Everybody does it, and that's like that's that narrative that is purported within today's society that makes people think that, oh, you know what, I really don't have an outlet for it, so I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna listen to them. I'm gonna say, well, it's just natural. Everyone does it, right? To be convinced of that is stupid, right? Here's the thing: what everyone does, I'm not gonna say everyone because it's definitely not everyone. What the people who are regular, what they do, they have sex. They don't need to go ahead and have this individual relationship with themselves, this individual sexual relationship with themselves. You know how pathetic that sounds? The craziest part about it is there's men that do get sex that still have that individual relationship with themselves. That's that the individual sexual relationship with themselves. How pathetic is that? You can get women, but you decide to go by yourself. You decide to go in a dark room with your phone and your hand and have the best time you feel like you can have, right? How pathetic does that actually sound, man? One of the most pathetic things I've ever seen, I've ever heard, yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous, man. So I'm gonna get into a little bit more detail with this, right? So I've struggled with temptation and lust for about 4 to 5 years. This is something that I was first introduced to these type of movements that were rejecting this behavior. I would say, yeah, about like 6 years ago. I'll say about 6 years ago. There was this one creator whose name is no longer the name that he has today. It was this guy. His name's David Hammond. He's like a he was once he had a channel called Self Developed, which was basically a self development channel. It later transitioned into like a Christianity self development channel. But one of the things that he used to talk about, these things that I mentioned, right? This movement of no fap, this movement of he didn't mention this. He mentioned something I learned later on. It was called sexual transmutation. It's basically the act of taking your sexual energy, which is probably one of the most potent energies that does exist, and transmuting it, which transmute means to change the energy or divert that energy or to direct that energy in somewhere else. And um, through all that knowledge that I have acquired, we're basically understanding that this is no longer an okay thing to go ahead and do. It was one thing that, and maybe you're even watching me and you're like, what the hell is this guy talking about, right? What is he talking about? He's ridiculous. That's impossible, right? That's exactly what I thought. I was thinking, this guy's talking about, this man's telling me to reject fucking this monkey relationship with myself. What is he talking about? It's impossible. It's impossible to go ahead and do. Right? That was my first initial interaction. I was like, dude, this guy's really talking about this? Really? He's really talking about this? He's talking about something that everybody does. He's telling people to stop doing what everybody does. He's insane. And then I started watching the content a little bit more, and then I came, and then like I said, when you have something that you value more than what you're doing, it's hard for you to deny that, right? So that's something that I'm trying to put forth. I'm trying to put forth some morals. I'm trying to put forth some values that you should have by saying you shouldn't value a sexual relationship with yourself. What you should value is a sexual relationship that you could have with someone else, that you could have and should have with someone that you care about. That is the ultimate pinnacle of this existence, right? And the fact that you don't have that, you're lacking something that is huge. So you're either going to settle with what you have, which isn't much, or you're going to go out in the world and truly get something that is worth having. So that is what I've learned. I learned how to overcome it, and I've learned to defeat the beast of lust multiple times. I have went on many I went on many occasions of voluntarily celibate. I had went 7 months voluntarily celibate. So I want to kind of lay something out as well, because I have to make that clear, right? So you got the involuntarily celibate people, the people that can't get sex, right? The people that don't get sex, and the people that can't get sex, right? That's involuntarily celibate people. Then you have the people that just have sex, right? Which are just the people that have sex, and then you have the people that are voluntarily celibate, right? The voluntarily celibate people are the people that can get sex but choose not to. And you must be thinking, well, if you could get sex, why would you ever refuse? Why would you ever refuse to not have sex, right? It is because I believe it is much more. It's a better use of your time. It's a better use of your energy if you're looking for a person to build something with. That's much more. That's a worthy use of your energy, as opposed to just wasting it on a bunch of people, right? Like I had mentioned earlier, I had believed the fallacy that thinking that sleeping with women is something of value. So that's one thing. That's something that I did because obviously once I defeated a version of the beast of lust, I still needed to get my needs met somewhere else. So therefore, I had needed to get that through people, right? Through women, right? So with that being said, obviously you should have this natural transition of understanding what is truly of higher value. So therefore, I had realized that it's probably not the best to be sleeping with multiple women. It's probably best that I choose one woman, right? That I look for one woman. So therefore, I had went on a uh, 7 month journey of being voluntarily celibate, right? That actually had led me to something that I think that, and there's not enough people talking about this, by the way. So there's people that talk about this specific topic, right? They talk about a dating and attraction. They talk about porn, masturbation, all these things. But the thing that I find the most interesting is most people, they don't actually have a girlfriend that talk about this shit, right? And that is the most interesting thing. I'm not gonna say that's gonna give me more credibility, but it's hard to not give me more credibility in the things that I'm saying. Is I've done there. I've done that. I've been there and I've done that when it comes to all of these things, right? And you come out on the end where you find a woman. Well, this is something that everyone should want. That you find a woman who's a good quality person, right? At the end of the day, a good quality person who's worth time, attention, and energy, and worth anything and everything that you could give her, right? This is something that every man should be looking for, and something that I see all too often that most people don't have, that everyone wants, right? So, with that being said, I went on that 7 month journey. I had found that woman. God had given me this woman because He felt that I had learned and earned enough in order to have her. So that is something that I would recommend. Obviously, defeat the beast of lust. This is an absolute essential, right? Get rid of porn, get rid of masturbation, get rid of all these things, right? All these things dilute your experience and they diminish the sexual interaction that you should be having with the world, right? Get rid of all these things. They're not going to do anything for you in this life, right? You must, and you must realize that the people who are valuing these things, and pay attention to what I said, that value these things, they don't have a proper value system. I'll say that. They don't have a proper value system, right? They don't have a proper value hierarchy, right? They don't value the right things, and their actions would suggest that they don't value the right things. So, with that being said, what do you value? What do you want? What do you want out of this life? What do you want your sexual interactions to be like? Do you want it to be with multiple people? Do you want it to be with one person, right? I would highly, highly recommend for it to be with one person. It's going to be much more worthwhile for many different reasons. And of course, that's not the cool thing to say. A lot of these things, I'm not saying it because it's cool, right? If I wanted to be that guy, I could be like, oh yeah, just go sleep with women. But I'm not going to report a lie that I've learned from, right? That's something that I'm not going to, that's not something that I'm going to do. And the people that you truly want in your life should reject and should value things that are higher than things that I have mentioned today when it comes to the porn, the masturbation, all these things, right? The social programming that is set up against you, right? The most difficult battle that men will face in today's generation is the battle that they will have with themselves, with their relationship with sex, with their relationship with masturbation, with their relationship to porn, and their relationship to provocative images and videos online. It's going to be there, it's going to be everywhere. You have two options. Option one, you become a victim. You indulge in these things. Option two, you reclaim your free will. You beat the social programming and you start to think for yourself. You learn what is truly of value and you act like you value what you say that you value. Those are the only two options you have. Obviously, go for the latter, right? So, hopefully, I can answer some of these questions. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. I appreciate everyone for watching. If you're rewatching this and you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comments. But that's pretty much all I have to say for today's episode. Your mind's being fucked. Take back what you should value, which is your own programming, right? Rewrite the programming that has been set up against you. The odds are stacked against you. Most men will not make it out on the other end. All I'm trying to do is make people become aware of the things that I believe would be best to be aware of because it served me so much. And like I'd mentioned, this battle of lust, this battle of temptation, this battle of fighting the social programming, right? It's not an easy battle whatsoever. But it is one of the most rewarding battles to win. And here's the thing, I'm not going to say it's a war. It's not necessarily a war, it's a battle, and there's many different battles. So overcome this monkey behavior. Stop doing these things that are absolutely foolish. Don't do these things and don't have this individual sexual relationship with yourself. Go out and get it in the world. You shouldn't want anything besides that. As far as your own sexual interactions, right? Learn to value something higher than the actions in which you are taking. And go earn it, man. Go work on yourself. Go do what you do whatever you got to do that's going to make you feel confident. Because here's the thing, I'm going to tell you one thing. Doing all these things, like I said, being a victim of this social programming, that shit's not going to make you confident. I'm telling you that right now. This is coming from my own personal experience, right? And coming from men that I've talked to that have also overcame this. You want to talk about confidence? If you're having a sexual relationship with yourself, you're not as confident as you could be. That's all I'm gonna say, man. But that's pretty much all I have to say for today's episode. Please just try your best, man. Try your best. At the end of the day, it's not going to be something that can be fixed and won't be fixed immediately. No matter how hard you try, it's not something that's going to be immediately fixed. But doing nothing is settling to be a victim of circumstance. You should be a person that, if you're trying to develop yourself in any capacity, is doing it with some intentionality. So do what you have to do. Make the decisions. Hear me out. Don't hear me out. It doesn't matter to me. But it is what it is, man. This is episode 217 of the Life of Champ podcast, talking about the most difficult battle that men face in this generation, and I would say will continue to face. This battle is going to get harder. This battle is going to get more fierce. The social media programming is going to become that much stronger once they realize that people are defying some of the ways. Of course, they're still going to want your attention, so therefore they're going to do whatever it takes. That's just what it is. It's you versus the programming. Maybe you'll win, maybe you'll lose, but I'm hoping that you go ahead and win. That's all I have to say for today's episode. I'll leave you guys off with the podcast motto. Fellas out here, man, we don't just work around here, man. We outwork. So make sure you outwork these motherfuckers because you know that I am, and you know the people around me are. If you need any help with any of this, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to have some one-on-one coaching if you do want to go ahead and attend that for sure. Let me know. But other than that, tap in with the next podcast that's going to be on Thursday. Fellas, I'm back, man. It's been a while, but I'm back. Other than that, please follow me on YouTube if you're not already following me, or subscribe on YouTube. Follow me on Rumble, Twitch, TikTok, and on Spotify at Life of a Champ Podcast. And more importantly, if you want to see my thoughts in writing, tap in with me on X. I'm going live on X from here on out as well. Life of a Champ with the dot. That's all it is, man. Y'all have a good rest of your night. Tap in with the next podcast on Thursday.